Welcome back to A Rogue Theory, where we explore the origins, influences, and playability of your favorite archetypes. Remember to like and subscribe for Rusty Bardish to come back to 3 and to get a noble seed the next time you play, maybe. The patrons, or patron in my case, has spoken, and today we are covering the Phantom Knights, a group of cursed and undying spirits that possess the armor and equipment they once wore before falling in battle. The Phantom Knights are comprised of 7 main deck knights, 3 XYZ knights, 1 link knight, 3 spell cards, and 10 trap cards.
But wait! There's more!
They also have 8 cards who, despite appearances, and sometimes even their names, are really designed to be Phantom Knight cards in disguise. And seeing as that gives us a total of 32 cards, you might be surprised as to why this video isn't 30 minutes long. Well, unlike most of the archetypes I've covered on my channel, the Phantom Knights lack a story, and an easily identifiable source of influence. For instance, the Phantom Knights could be influenced from folklore and the legends from medieval Europe, like the legend of King Arthur, or they could come from darker and more sinister fairy tales. However, seeing as this archetype originates from the Arc V manga and anime, and is wielded by Yugioh, one of the secondary protagonists, we have to consider what the writer Shin Yoshida, creator of Zexal, Arc V, and Bonds Beyond Time, would have based the Phantom Knights from. Well, seeing as Yoshida lives in Japan and that this archetype was not made by one of the TCG offices, we can easily cross out the idea of European folklore and fairy tales. But what does that leave us with? Well, if you haven't ever lived in Japan, let me give you a hint.
Hey, look! The Dungeons and Dragons ride!
That's right, the Phantom Knights are based off of Dungeons and Dragons. Overseas in Japan, the tabletop gaming community is a huge market and is even more popular than it once was in the 80s and 90s. Call of Cthulhu being one of the most notable sellers overseas. Now, while it's possible the whole haunted armor gimmick probably comes from an influence based on Call of Cthulhu, these cards aren't the Eldritch Horrors, and are more likely the undead spirits of dead player characters, as each card can be represented by the equipment found in the player's handbook and other resource guidebooks. In respect to this possibility, the tabletop gaming community, and the fact that I need my watch time hours to meet monetization standards for YouTube so I can get paid and do this part-time, instead of writing scripts on my lunch break, I have created a separate spin-off video and series in lieu of my ability to create a lore-based segment for this video. So make sure to check out my new series D20, where I teach you how to play as your favorite fictional characters in Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs. Now, back to the archetype analysis. The Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak. Okay, this first effect is garbage most of the time, but if we look at this card's secondary effect, we get to see what this deck's gimmick is all about, using effects in or related to the graveyard to continually cycle resources into advantage and consistent plays. That said, since Ancient Cloak can search anything by banishing itself from the graveyard, it's an absolute must in every Phantom Knight build. The Phantom Knights of Cloven Helm. Okay, now while the Dogmatica archetype could get away with using Titanclad to add Dogmaticas in the end phase, the Phantom Knights sadly have no synergy with this strategy, as the Phantom Knights lack their own version of Fleur-de-Lis and would rather run something else in the main deck over the Cloven Helm's slow and weak effect. The Phantom Knights of Fragile Armor. At a first glance, this card appears to be one of the worst monsters in the deck, as it seems to rely on your opponent destroying your cards. Well, as luck would have it, however, this card can be used in combination with the Phantom Knights of Breaksword to cycle himself onto the field, and then later into the graveyard to use his graveyard dumping and draw-based effect to further combo and thin your deck. With that said though, this card would rather not be worth playing if it wasn't for the new cards coming out in Phantom Rage. The Phantom Knights of Ragged Gloves. While the mandatory material effect on this card is not meta impacting, it allows the deck a fighting chance as it strengthens your monsters. However, more importantly, it can be used to Foolish Burial any Phantom Knight card you could want to extend your combos, set up for next turn, or to protect your current board state by banishing it from the graveyard. The Phantom Knights of Silent Boots was originally one of the best main deck knights, as it let the deck extend combos and plays within its own archetype without the need of other non-Phantom Knight cards or graveyard setup, and only required the Phantom Knight monster to be on the field. Also, it came with the added benefit of being able to be banished from the graveyard to search any spell or trap. Add this in combination with Ancient Cloak and you had free reign to add whatever you wanted from the main deck twice. The Phantom Knights of Stained Greaves is one of the newer support cards in Phantom Rage, and like Silent Boots, it can be special summoned from the hand. However, it does require some small niche setup. Thankfully though, once it's on the field or in the graveyard, you won't have any problems trying to get another monster from your hand onto the field to extend further, thanks to its secondary monster effect, which will let you special summon whatever you want. The Phantom Knights of Tearscale is another terrific addition from the set Phantom Rage. It adds another way for the deck to have an in-archetype Foolish Burial for any card in the deck, and it can revive itself when any Phantom Knight card is banished from the graveyard. In theory, this card is basically the combination of Salamangreat Spinny and Gazelle, except it can also add a danger. However, it can only use this effect really once it's on the field, and while that's not necessarily the best, the Phantom Knights lack a normal summon based monster that they actually want to summon, and this is that. So All in all, it's good. The Phantom Knights of Raider's Wing. Okay, while this card doesn't technically have the name Phantom Knight in it, it does carry the unique condition of always being treated as a Phantom Knight card and a Raid Raptor card per its name, Raiders. And while I imagine there are some neat little tricks you can do by combining both the Raid Raptors and the Phantom Knights with this new card, for today we will be focusing on what it can do for just the Phantom Knights. First, it provides them with an extra extender at the cost of losing a material from a Dark XYZ monster to summon it. And second, it makes whatever it's attached to as a material to be unable to be targeted by your opponent's card effects. While that doesn't seem as important, a lot of decks actually truthfully lack a way to deal with a boss monster that can't be targeted. After all, look at Dragoon and look at Towers. The Phantom Knights of Cursed Javelin isn't actually played in the deck despite its ability to negate monster effects and also change the monster that they negated to 0 attack. This is primarily due to the fact that even though it does have a quick effect ability and condition on it, it can't actually be summoned with any of our main deck knights, and it has to rely on our trap cards to summon it out. The Phantom Knights of Breaksword gives the deck the ability to break boards going second and allows you to access a limited portion of the rank 4 toolbox, but in the case that you end up going first, it can also act as a decent OTK preventer by blocking up to 3 attacks from your opponent's monsters once it's been destroyed and revives 2 of your monsters. Raider's Knight, like Raider's Wing, is always treated as a Phantom Knight or Raid Raptor card. As a hard once per turn effect, it can use itself as material for an XYZ summon of a higher or lower rank Phantom Knight, Raid Raptor, or XYZ Dragon monster, assuming that they're within 1 star, but that monster will be destroyed on your opponent's end phase. While that drawback might not sound ideal, the fact that you can rank up into this with Breaksword to then rank back down for a second pop to then freely extend from there is enough of a reason to be excited to blind second and pop off. XYZ Dragons Dark Rebellion, Dark Requiem, Arc Rebellion, and XYZ adjacent dragons Odd Eyes Rebellion and Odd Eyes Overload Rebellion weren't originally going to be included in this archetype analysis, despite them being the main boss monsters for Yuta and Yugioh in the anime and manga. What changed, however, is the grind game loop that I discovered that this deck can utilize with the addition of these monsters and the overall power that they have to break boards going second. Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon takes away the attack from a monster and gives it to itself to boost its damage. While not impressive, this effect detaches 2 cards from your XYZ monster and then lets you freely use your Phantom Knight banish effects now that they're in the graveyard. Dark Requiem XYZ Dragon, while this card doesn't benefit freely off the Raider's Knight by providing you an easy negate on field, it can still be special summoned with the rank up magics that are easily searchable within this deck, thus providing you a free monster negate that can also summon back any XYZ monster for follow-up play. Arc Rebellion XYZ Dragon can't be destroyed by card effects, and it can gain the combined attack points of all monsters on the field while simultaneously also negating them. However, it limits itself to being the only monster that can attack for the rest of the turn. But when you consider that almost every deck will be turboing out Red Eyes Dragoon and ending on boards with enough attack points to easily kill you twice, Arc Rebellion manages to be an effective monster in terms of OTK potential, counterplay, and forcing out monster negation. Odd Eyes Rebellion XYZ Dragon Overload can be special summoned by using any Rebellion XYZ monster, and what's fantastic about this ability is that it means that you can easily summon this card from your previously mentioned dragons once you used up all your XYZ material on them or finished using their effects for that turn. And while it can also attack up to 3 times in a battle phase, it requires a rank 7 XYZ attached to it to do so. However, that's actually easy enough to achieve on its own. As per its monster effect, once it's destroyed, you can place it in its pendulum zone. Once there, you can use its pendulum effect to special summon from the extra deck any Rebellion or Phantom Knight card, using itself as material. Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon is mostly used to perform OTKs and to give the Phantom Knights its own version of Gaga Cowboy, but seeing as few decks end on boards that will be wiped out on just this card alone, you still might have to rely on your other monsters to win you the game. In regards to its pendulum effect though, without a set of Phantom Knight pendulum monsters, I personally don't think you'll be comboing off with either its pendulum or its secondary floating effect. The Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardish.
Yo, I got banned from events, and here's how it went down. I did nothing wrong, man. I did nothing wrong whatsoever. I got banned. I didn't even know I got banned. I didn't get no email. I didn't get no explanation. I didn't have a chance to explain myself. I just got banned.
Jokes aside, who knows, Konami might just bring this back to sell the set Phantom Rage, in which case make sure to pick up Cherubini as it's the freest of monsters to summon within the deck to later then extend into Rusty Bardish. The Phantom Knight's Spear. It does burn damage and protects your monsters from destruction. That's about it. The Phantom Knights of Rank Up Launch, searchable with Ancient Cloak and Silent Boots and easily accessible with the many versions of Foolish Burial that this deck runs, powerful because it can easily summon out Dark Requiem and Tier 0 within its own deck because Requiem's monster negation isn't once per turn, and you can banish this card from the graveyard to add another Phantom Knight monster from your hand to it as material. Rank Up Magic Phantom Knight Force. Take everything that I said about the Rank Up Magic launch, except adding materials, and apply it to this card. Then add in the fact that with enough monsters in the graveyard, you can summon an Ultimate Falcon who is unaffected by card effects or whatever you want from the Raid Raptor XYZ list. And I'm certain you too can see why this is an amazing option. However, if you plan to make big boards turn 1 and not focus on the resource grind game, I feel that this card will be less effective if you want to tech Raid Raptors in your deck, as you'll be banishing resources throughout the game rather than accumulating them for a big payoff. The Phantom Knights of Shade Brigadine is a trap card that acts as a spell card that summons itself as a monster card if you have no trap cards in your graveyard. Weird, bizarre, and surprisingly effective, as even Adamancipator runs this card in some of their deck lists. The Phantom Knights of Wrong Magnet Ring can negate an attack and summon itself as a monster that can then send itself and another Phantom Knight card to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. Overall, it's probably not the best card, and I wouldn't recommend running it in the main deck. The Phantom Knights of Shadow Veil. Just don't play this card. It gives a monster 300 attack and can revive itself as a level 4 Dark Warrior, but only when your opponent declares a direct attack, so most often it's going to still get destroyed. The Phantom Knights of Tomb Shield summons a level 3 and can banish itself the turn after it hits the graveyard to negate a face-up trap card on your opponent's field. Besides the trap negation, this card isn't remotely relevant, so I suggest you don't play this at all. The Phantom Knights of Lost Vambrins protects all your monsters from being destroyed by battle, but it unfortunately doesn't protect them from being destroyed by card effects. Also, it permanently forces your monster that you targeted to activate this effect into becoming a level 2 monster alongside this trap card. All in all, not ideal and 100% not worth playing in the deck despite the access that it gives you to the Cursed Javelin. The Phantom Knights of Dark Gauntlets is a foolish burial goods that can turn itself into a monster from the graveyard to prevent a direct attack. As you can assume, most of the time it's not really that good, as all your monsters can already do that for you, so it's not necessarily worth running within the deck. The Phantom Knights of Mistclaw is honestly one of those cards you want to run because the artwork looks so cool, but you probably shouldn't. While adding back a Phantom Knight monster to your hand from the banish pile could be good, its second effect of putting up 2 monsters to stop a direct attack doesn't make this worth playing in my opinion. The Phantom Knight Sword acts as an equip spell despite being a continuous trap card, but thanks to the lack of damage step cards currently in the metagame, the Phantom Knight Sword is an effective way to catch your opponent off guard and make them regret attacking your monster. The sword can also protect whatever it's targeting by destroying itself. Then once it's in the graveyard, you can banish the sword to revive any Phantom Knight monster you could want. The Phantom Knight's Wing is effectively the same card as Phantom Knight's Sword, but it gives less attack points, and instead it doesn't linger on the field and provides the monster a hovering protection effect that lasts until it's used up. Because of this feature, the card is significantly better than Sword, as you can use this attack boost effect and then immediately revive whatever monster you want from your graveyard. The Phantom Knight's Fogblade, finally an objectively good card. Like Sword and Wings, it can revive Phantom Knight monsters from the graveyard. But that's not all, it's basically a Fiendish Chain, except instead of just negating the effects of whatever it targets and the monster not being able to attack, no monster in the field can choose to attack that targeted card. Meaning not only is it a searchable piece of interruption, it also acts as a way to protect your monsters from being OTK'd, as Boral Sword, Borreload, and other boss monsters can't even attack it in the first place. Raider's Unbreakable Mind, like Raider's Wing and Raider's Knight, is always treated as a Phantom Knight card. While it's a slow effect to pop monsters when you XYZ summon with a Dark XYZ monster as material, the usage of Unbreakable Mind is easy to trigger on your opponent's turn with the searchable rank up magics for this archetype and the easy XYZ climb from Raider's Knight into whatever you want. And finally, Raid Raptor Phantom Knight's Claw is what pushes this deck, in a pure version at least, into the competitive field. The fact that you can search this counter trap, along with the fact that it can negate and destroy the activation of a monster effect at the cost of a material, means drawing this is never a brick unless you lack the monsters to do so. Okay, now that we all know the cards that are released and are going to be, or are soon to be imported from the OCG in Phantom Rage, we can finally speak to the competitive viability of this archetype. While in most cases giving a past archetype support doesn't often lead to becoming a tier 1 deck, in the case of the Phantom Knights, we should expect it to rise to new heights, especially if we get Rusty Bardish off the ban list. For combos today, I only have one thing to show you, the Phantom Knight of tier scale plus any card. This combo features a 1-card hand technically that runs a series of odd ratios meant to turbo yourself into 3 pieces of negation. While I don't advocate playing these odd series of cards or using this combo line, you have to understand that as a display of what this deck is capable of doing turn 1 means that in the right hands a good duelist or deck builder should be easily able to break the metagame. After all, with the addition of your other cards in hand, you could have upwards of 7 negates. Here's the list I'm currently playing around with. While I'm not typically a fan of Burning Abyss due to its playstyle being heavily related to luck with Dante Mills, the Phantom Knights add a level of consistency to the archetype that other previous extenders, like Block Dragon and Destiny Hero Malicious, failed to achieve. By continually cycling resources and having every card within its engine have some purpose within the graveyard, this is a much more effective and more powerful build in my opinion. Now, while I doubt the combos I showed you were anywhere near optimal, I think given time, the TCG will certainly find a way to break the deck and bring these undead knights back from the brink of death. Hi guys, it's Rogue Theory here. Sorry about the delay between my last video and this one here. I've just been feeling under the weather for the past month, and so it's been really hard to get audio and vocals out at an acceptable and appreciative manner on my own part. That's why it might sound a little weird or a little odd at certain points, and just this was the best that I could really do without delaying this video for another week. But hopefully I can get another video to you guys out within a week's time. Oh, and if you want to access the monthly polls where you get to suggest what archetypes are next, feel free to support me on Patreon in the link down below. And as always, this is Rogue Theory, passing turn.